Let's talk about Judas, the game that Ken Levine's next game, the thing that he started working on after Bioshock Infinite that has barely seen anything across the last 10 years. We've had a couple of trailers. There was a story trailer a couple of years ago and a gameplay trailer last year. And it very much looks like a Bioshock. As much as it was going to be differentiable, I think looking at just the gameplay in the most recent trailer, there are a lot of Bioshock comparisons. However, right now, we do have the biggest drop of new information over on the PlayStation blog. So sadly, not any additional footage just yet. We might get some before the end of the year. I'm quoting the write-up from Shinobi602 over on Twitter because there is a full blog post you can go read from Levine. But in Judas, the main theme is apparently villainy. The central feature of the game, where Bioshock had villains, Judas features the big three. Characters that become your friends and you make decisions on who you want to focus your energy on and who you alienate. Your actions determine which of them become the villain as the story plays out. Depending on who becomes the villain, they get new powers to subvert your goals throughout the game. Levine references the emergent gameplay of the Nemesis system in Shadow of Mordor, but rather than dozens of characters, it's more intimate with just these three particular ones. Levine said, we want losing one of them to feel like losing a friend. We want to play with that dynamic, and we want that choice to be super hard. Shinobi says the big three will all compete for your favor and attention. They can bribe you, save you in battle, talk poop about the others, and share with you their darkest secrets, but you have to decide who you trust and who you don't. The big three observe you as you play and have feelings about how you fight, hack, craft, and interact with the other two characters. And overall, there's a cast of over 100 speaking characters in the game, but it's all about these main three. It seems like one of them, based on the gameplay footage that's already out there, is that horse-faced character.
Oh yeah,
that's in the new key art, because they put a piece of key art out for the game, which looks very pulpy. It looks very like pulp sci-fi novel kind of thing. There's a character that just seems to be like a horse in a jacket, and there's a bit of gameplay where that is helping you out in combat. So I have to imagine that's one of the three.
Yeah.
But what do you think of the whole thing? Because it's quite a big departure from Bioshock in terms of the structure. Anyway.
Yeah, but very ambitious, very intriguing. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I think it's very interesting to front load the idea that you're gonna have three characters and through your choices one of them is gonna become the villain. In my head, as a non-writer of games, I would think that gut punch would be more effective if you didn't realize necessarily what your choices are influencing. I wonder how it's gonna change the player's mindset, myself included, if I go in there knowing what the consequences are going to be. Obviously, you don't know what the villains are going to get up to when they become the villain, but knowing that whoever you don't side with, like the blog post mentions, will ultimately become the person you're facing off against, how that changes the way you play the game or interact with people and maybe make choices in the game. But if they can make these characters as dynamic and as full of depth as they need to be to make that decision that you're making difficult, then I think they'll be able to pull it off. If they're able to subvert your expectations when you go in and you think you're going to side with one character and then they turn out to be, I don't know, aligned differently than what you want to achieve in the game, but then you realize that you've neglected this other person who now you want to catch up with, but maybe you don't have enough time and they're destined to be the villain now and you're stuck with these people you don't like. I think that complicates it nicely. And I know Ken Levine, I'm a fan of his narratives in his games, even when they get as daft and as on the nose as Bioshock Infinite. I'm sure he'll be able to at least give you those kind of compelling characters and decisions. So very, very interesting and not what I was expecting at all.
No, the thing is, I remember when because he formed a new studio, dude left Irrational Games, the people that put together Bioshock Infinite and everything, left them, formed Ghost Story Games, took a handful of employees from Irrational. It was a whole thing at the time that he wasn't being able to take everybody across. It was a select few people. And at the time, the big idea for his next game, which turned out to be Judas, was this narrative building block game where you could go off in all these different directions. The game would then form itself around you, all these different decisions and whatever. And so I'm curious how much customization you have across the entire story. At some point, you have to ground something to be okay, we need to tell an A, B, and C story. So assumedly, whatever happens all anchors to these characters. And maybe, you can go to all these different locations, you can have all these different conversations, but one of the three will always be with you, monitoring how you're doing things. And then I guess seeing, how that plays out in a sort of standard RPG, they will remember this type format.
Yeah.
But I like the ambition of it, like you said. I think that's obviously the thing that's going to be selling the game overall, and it's a good indicator that he's leading with that on the blog post. But like you said, revealing it up front means people are going in kind of knowing they're going to be screwing some people over, getting screwed over or whatever. I want to see more from the gameplay side because the main woman that you play as, I don't think she's been named yet, but in the new key art, she's holding like a handful of flame. and in the gameplay that was out there, that just looks like a plasmid. And it's like, dude's just doing the Bioshock framework again in terms of the gameplay. And if we're doing a lot of choices, I'm fascinated by the idea of doing real-time choices through Bioshock style gameplay, where you don't realize you've gone down a certain avenue. You know, you killed that NPC that was actually a friend of the guy you were with, or whatever. Like, you know, how dynamic is that stuff going to be? Or are we stopping the game to be like, do you actually want to do this or do this? Like, you know, some things in Bioshock Infinite that dictated like certain the relationship that you had with Elizabeth. It was like, I'm going to choose to stop and play the guitar with her for a bit or whatever. And I wonder how seamless he's made that stuff. And how varied things can be. Like it's sorry to go on.
No, keep going.
But the whole thing with the development of this game, the reason it's taken so long, according to the Jason Schreier report over on Bloomberg from I think 2 or 3 years ago, was that Levine will throw out entire builds of the game, or something close to that anyway, because he needs it to be a very specific thing. And some people have left the studio over that. Obviously, it's taken so long. And we're finally getting, assumedly, his perfect vision for this complex narrative building block, multi-villain thing. And so I just hope that it actually does come together and feels purposeful. Because even Bioshock Infinite felt, you know, haggled by a messy development.
Oh, yeah.
And was notoriously one of the messiest developments of all time. So hopefully this is a lot clearer.
You cannot, like, bank on Ken Levine for much, but you can bank on him not delivering a game that is what he initially announced, if that makes sense. Like, you look at Bioshock Infinite, and yeah, the characters are the same, the setting is the same, but it was the same philosophy of, we don't like this anymore. We're chucking that out. We're rewriting the story. We're going in a completely different direction. And like you said, the Bloomberg report indicates that same cycle has happened here. Still, like the fact that this game has been in development for 12 years and counting makes me, again, cautiously optimistic. What have you done in that time? I think if this game came out immediately after Bioshock Infinite, I wouldn't necessarily buy into its idea of this building block narrative of you're going to have this much influence over things. Because when you try to do that stuff, it just takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of development. So if you've had this long to put all of that stuff together, hopefully it is as comprehensive as you mentioned. It does feel as natural and surprising as you mentioned, and those avenues feel more substantial than just kind of arbitrary choices here and there, and it is like the building blocks of the entire experience. Gameplay wise, it does look like Bioshock, and gameplay wise, that's the place where I'm expecting it to be fine, but not blow me away.
I was going to ask what you thought of that. Yeah.
It's going to be the narrative structure, I think. It seems like that's what the time has gone into. I was actually surprised when it was first revealed that it was a first-person shooter at all. Like it was as close to Bioshock. But I mean, we haven't had a Bioshock in a while, so sure, that's okay with me. I like the gameplay in these games enough, but it's always been the story and the worlds that I've kind of come for. I think probably the gameplay got the best it's ever been in Bioshock 2 when it wasn't even the original developers, just because of the way it fleshed out the worlds, the environments, it made them a little bit more open-ended and give you more options and stuff. But yeah, if it's the narratives, that's the focus. That's kind of what I'm going to be there. And as long as the gameplay isn't complete trash, that shouldn't do too much to detract me overall.
No, I was going to ask, specifically about the feel of shooting in these games, because that's what always puts me off replaying Bioshock.
Yeah, I know you hate the original, don't you?
Well, the entire thing. It's like the feel, like that original Bioshock, you're coming up against so many big daddies. I think they did the same problem in Infinite when you go up against the handyman, where I feel like these games just need a dodge. They need a dash. Like, I need something that I can get out the way of the big lumbering thing that's coming at me, rather than turning around and sprinting the other way and then turning around and trying to engage them again. All the stuff in Infinite with the skyhooks that I felt was solid enough. It was fun, but they could have done a lot more with that in terms of evasion, or I don't know, just a lot more to do with evasive maneuvers in those firefights. Because Infinite had a really good mix of using those powers that you get to take control of a turret on the other side of the battlefield, which then shoots all your enemies from behind while you jump and take the skyhook and go somewhere else. You could see what it was going for, and occasionally it clicked. But Bioshock 1, I just hated fighting the big daddies. I just thought it was so boring. I had no options in terms of just shoot the dude, hide behind a pillar, shoot the guy again. And so, and then the actual feel of the weapons for me in Bioshock never really stood out that much. They're chunky enough, the sound design is solid enough, but it's not something where, it stands out. Like when I think of Bioshock, and I feel like it's the wider conversation on the series as well, it's everything other than the gameplay. If you're going to replay it, it's to re-experience characters, it's to re-experience the world, it's to explore Rapture and find an audio log or something. And I would like it to be Judas to be memorable for the gameplay.
Yeah.
For the feel, and it's taken so long to put together. So I just hope that it feels fun to get through and not just to try and get to the next story beat.
Oh, fingers crossed.